Hello and welcome to the first video in this short course on anxiety and understanding just what it is, and some initial tools, some thoughts and some insight into my approach when I work with people in terms of the experience of anxiety. In this first video I'm going to try and explain just what is anxiety from my perspective, having worked with clients in a professional private clinical setting now for approaching 10 years, and also, as I talk about regularly, navigating my own experience through anxiety throughout the course of my adult life. There are hundreds of different ways, thousands, possibly an infinite number of ways of defining what anxiety is, because I believe it's completely unique to us as individuals. What I'm going to share here is my take on what I think is going on more broadly, and then as we move through the rest of this short course, you'll get some more information on that about how I might approach it to see if my style, my content, my approach might resonate with you. This is for educational and information purposes only. It's not the same as coming to me for one-to-one therapy or counselling with another therapist. I do really think that part of our individual therapy journey is psychological education, understanding how the mind, the brain and the body all work together in unison as one complete system in order to help us to navigate the way through our lives and the world, and also specifically in this case to talk about the experience of anxiety. So I hope that what we have in this video and forthcoming ones and in the larger courses helps to really cement your knowledge and understanding of what anxiety is and some of the things that we can do for ourselves in order to perhaps move on our experience and to change the way that we feel. So anxiety, first off, is it a mental health condition or is it part of life? What I'm really thinking about here is that there is anxiousness and worries, and there is also anxiety. So let's try and put some definitions around that. Anxiousness and worries are a natural part of life. None of us are going to get through our lives without having things to be anxious about or to worry about. It may be financial challenges, it may be relationship challenges, it may be challenges around work, it may be all of those types of things. And the anxious response, the fear response, the worry response is something that our brain has and our body has in order to alert us to potential challenges. Anxiety, we could think of, is where that worry response, that fear response, that panic response, whatever we want to call it, is switched on disproportionately. It is constantly switched on, or certainly feels like it is, and then it really starts to affect our experience of life, and the sensation, the how we feel in terms of that anxiousness and worry never seems to switch off, or it never seems to subside or abate. And that it appears in every single aspect of our life, whether it is appropriate or proportionate or not. So anxiety could be thought of in terms of the mental health condition, the mental health presentation, as a symptom, and this is how it's defined from a medical or pathological way, of phobias, of social anxiety, of earlier psychological trauma, and of a panic disorder more broadly in terms of a mental health condition. We could think of anxiety being a symptom, a presentation, a manifestation of these things in different combinations. We'll circle back and look at trauma in a little bit more detail in this video. We'll think about social anxiety and why the fears, the worries, the idea of what other people think of us may be contributing to our experience of social anxiety. So the first thing that people may become aware of in terms of their own version, their own unique brand of anxiety, is irrational or intrusive thoughts. A set of thoughts that run counter to what might be logical or intellectual or rational or positive. A set of negative thoughts where worst case scenarios are continually playing out in that person's mind, or they see themselves in a negative light. And that certainly is a very large part of our own version, our own unique experience of anxiety. Throughout the course, we'll be looking at where those thoughts kind of constellate, where they sit in our mind, and why we may have developed those in the first place. We weren't born with them. There's no such the over the course of our lives, our mind absorbs our environment and it makes assumptions, it finds patterns, it finds meaning and value in all of the experiences that we have, and starts to establish sets of thoughts and patterns within our mind. Some of those are incredibly helpful, some of those maybe less so. So we'll be looking at why we develop these thought patterns overall. Our brain and body then respond to the thoughts that we have. So it may be that the thoughts we have are contributing in a large part, our perceptions, our version of reality, the things that we see and the things that we feel contribute massively to our experience of anxiety in the first place. The next part is how the brain works. We have something called the fight or flight response. It's often said that because the human brain evolved over the course of 1 million years or so, that the anxiety response is sometimes called the caveman hangover, that we were used to living in a very threatening, very hostile environment where it was life and death threats upon us each and every day, and that we needed to have this very exaggerated fight or flight response in order to get us away from immediate danger that was life or death situations. And because we don't have those situations now in a modern Western world, but we still have those structures in the brain that we experience anxiety because that's how our brain has evolved. It has this mechanism, so anything that we find uncomfortable applies that same mechanism to our immediate environment, our immediate situation, our immediate relationships. Now there may well be some truth in that. However, because not everybody experiences the same situations, the same interactions in the same way, I don't know that that is a completely true statement. Some of us may become desperately anxious or experience the mental health condition of anxiety as a result of a conversation with a colleague or the prospect of sending an email or having to make a phone call, where another person may just simply take that in their stride. So to say that we have this hangover from our primeval days, our prehistoric days, I don't know if that is fully accurate in terms of our individual response. What I try and teach people to do and help them to learn how to do is to think about where and when and what causes the specific levels of anxiety to manifest, to come to the surface, and that are there different types of anxious feeling that they have, and to what extent they feel that in those various different circumstances. A lot is said about the chemical structure of the brain, a chemical that most people are aware of now in terms of mental health, serotonin. It's a very, very important neuromodulator in terms of helping to regulate our mood. But there seems to be a growing body of evidence to say that our mental health isn't contingent upon one chemical. There are lots and lots of different chemicals that are going on within the brain and in the body, and how our entire body's chemistry plays a role in our mood and our emotional state overall at any given time. So the chemistry of our body certainly does have a role to play, a very significant role in terms of how we feel. And that in order to improve the chemistry of our body, it isn't centred or constellated around one chemical being deficient in that or others. And that we can, through diet, exercise, nutrition, improving our sleep, improving our physiological health, help to restore some sort of balance within our body's internal chemistry. Now that on its own may not resolve an individual's experience of anxiety, but over the last 6 to 9 months, my practice has turned almost completely on its head, and encouraging people to think about their physical health, their physiological health, with equal weighting as they do their psychological well-being, and also to look at the world that they have around them and how that's contributing to how they feel. And we'll come back to that in just a moment or two. We often think that there might be a genetic cause to anxiety. From what I can see, there doesn't appear to be any specific singular cause that may give rise to somebody having the experience of anxiety simply because their parents or their grandparents or other family members have had that. My view, my opinion, is that it is more nurture-based rather than nature-based, that our environment and our experiences form our psychology, and our psychology then plays into our physiology, and it is that, more than anything else, that contributes to our psychological experience of anxiety. There are certain genetic factors, our likelihood to, our sensitivity to trauma and sensitivity to how our brain processes traumatic experience does seem to come from passed down genetically, but in terms of anxiety itself, it doesn't appear to be, from what I can find, any specific or singular genetic cause. As a trauma, anxiety is a trauma response. I firmly believe, through my own experience and from working with clients on a one-to-one basis, that the bulk of our anxious experience is as a result of earlier events in our lives. And some of those may be that we can't remember, that they are before we started to form memories. Some of them we may see as being inconsequential or not sufficient enough to, sufficiently upsetting or distressing enough to cause anxiety in adult life. Our lives are essentially a journey. We go through different phases, different chapters, and when we go through something upsetting in our younger days, in our childhood, we don't have the same life experience, the same wisdom, the same knowledge, the same understanding of things as we might do in adult life. So there isn't really any comparison, any scale to say what's the severity, the upsettingness of a singular event in our lives that may contribute to the experience of anxiety in later life. So my thought, my feeling is that most anxiety is as a result of something that's happened or a series of events that have happened earlier on in our lives. And that it is very easy as an adult to say, well, it can't possibly be that because other people have it worse, or it wasn't that bad, or it was a long time ago. As this course develops and unfolds, we'll look at what is meant by trauma from a psychological, technical definition perspective, and how it's most common that all of us will go through things that we find upsetting and distressing and overwhelming at times in our life, and we'll use that as a benchmark, as a framework to understand what a trauma response is in terms of anxiety and what we can do about it. The brain has something called neuroplasticity. It is in a constant state of learning and unlearning, and we can use that ability that the brain naturally has to learn new things and unlearn old things in order to help to relieve ourselves of the emotional impact of the events of our lives, if we still find them distressing at some level and contributing to our experience of anxiety. That's not particularly easy to do, but it is absolutely possible to do with some work and some understanding of the mechanisms involved, the chemistry involved, and how the brain actually goes about learning things and unlearning things. And it is a mechanism that we can learn to tap into. And that's something that I'm fantastically interested in. That's my core discipline, is hypnotherapy, which is about helping to make people to make changes at a deeper level within their mind. And within this course, I'll be explaining not just the mechanism, the chemistry as it's now understood, but also some tools through self-hypnosis and other coaching and psychological tools that you can help to jumpstart that process of changing how your mind actually works, and the software, if you like, or the programming of your brain at a more fundamental and foundational level. So there are 4 areas that I believe contribute to our, not just anxiety, but our overall well-being, both mental, physical and emotional. And essentially, if we want to take it to kind of a larger level, a more broader level, our overall experience of life. I think each of these, I call them the 4 pillars, each of these has equal weighting in terms of our experience of life overall, our happiness, our health, our well-being, and even our longevity. The first of which may not come as a massive surprise is our psychology. And I define that as our life events and our learned patterns, the software, the programming of our minds and our brains. It is entirely possible to change our psychology. Our psychology develops and unfolds and unfurls over the course of our lives. We don't think the same things as we thought 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's a very subtle process that changes and evolves over time. But if there are things that we find that aren't helping us in terms of our psychological experience, we can look at those, figure out what they are, and work on them until they change to something that suits us on a more long-term basis. Our next stage, I believe, is our physiological health, and I define that as the workings, the operation of your brain and body moment by moment, how it is right now. Your body's chemistry is different right now than it was 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, an hour ago when you were asleep last night. That it is changing in relation to the amount of energy you have, your nutrition, your hydration, whether you need to use a bathroom, whether you're in pain, what is going on at a molecular level, and your brain is interpreting that moment by moment by moment. And when your energy levels dip, say throughout the course of the day, then that can have the effect of bringing our mood down. It can have the effect of increasing our likelihood to feel more anxious. So I think that when we concentrate on our physiological health to try and get our bodies in a state of balance as often and as frequently and to the very best of our ability, then because our brain is completely connected to everything that is going on within our body's chemistry, then it can help to improve our psychological experience. A thing that I really like to think about in terms of our emotions, our moods in psychology called our affect, how we feel overall in terms of our mood, our energy levels, our thought patterns, is that our emotion is the entire expression of what is going on within our mind, body, brain and experience at any given moment. And that changes and is in a constant state of flux as our brain is interpreting and making sense of not only our outside world, but also our inner world, all of the systems, everything that is going on the inside. So looking after that with absolute priority and as very best as we can with the tools and the resources that we have available to us, I think is incredibly important. And it has become an area that I'm increasingly interested in terms of working with my clients in the field of anxiety, and also when we start to think about physiological health from a weight management perspective, and also a fatigue and burnout area. Next, we have our physical health. This is the structures of our brain and our body. Many of my clients come to me because they are looking to change the physical structure of their body in terms of their body weight, that they, through the accumulation of body fat over time, their weight has become a level which has become unhealthy for them. So they're looking to change the physical structure of their body, and it is having an effect on their physiological health and therefore their mood and their psychology overall. So if somebody is unhappy with their physical health, in that example with their weight, but it could equally be a chronic illness or a chronic condition that they're struggling with, then that will have an effect on their psychology, which in turn will affect the chemistry of their body, which may exacerbate the experience of their physical health conditions as well. Our physical health, unfortunately, deteriorates over the second half of our life. If we are not looking to exercise and improve our health, then we are aging, and we need to continue to try to keep our bodies fit and strong and supple. And I believe that we need to consider that not as something that we would like to do or would be nice to have if we were a bit fitter or whatever else, that we need to consider that as an absolutely mandatory priority for us if we expect to enjoy good physiological and psychological health. This area is a big challenge for lots of people because it takes time to exercise. It takes energy, it takes motivation. We have to overcome our procrastinations. We have to overcome challenges in our relationships and our environment often to continue to work and improve our physical health. It's not an easy area and not an easy thing to do. Many people come to me because they are experiencing chronic pain conditions, and the prospect and thought of exercise or movement can be incredibly challenging. So we have to overcome that as well. And equally, it is something that I think is fundamental and foundational to our health overall to ensure that we are looking after our body in the very best ways that we can. I have some ideas that I'll share with you about motivation and procrastination, and also for those of us that struggle with burnout and fatigue, how we may be able to gently and incrementally over time improve our ability to look after ourselves on a physical structure basis. So that's a physical health. And then finally, our environment and our relationships. Our brain is interacting with our environment constantly. It's often said that our brain is processing about 2 million pieces of information from our external world and our internal world continually. And the events and the environment that we find ourselves and the people around it within that environment obviously have a huge and significant effect on how our mood and our energy levels and what our experience of life is. Human beings are a tribal species. None of us is going to make it through on our own, so we need to have relationships interconnected with other people in order to live a happy and full and contented lives, but also to survive. So we need to have relationships with people. And also relationships can also be our biggest challenge in our life. What people think of us, what we think of them, what our expectations are, what our needs are, what our hopes are and aspirations for the different types of relationships that we have. It may be with a significant other, it may be with children, it may be with parents or colleagues, friends. These are all different types of relationships that all have their own unique set of rules and ways in which we interact and relate to each other. And understanding how those different relationships play out, the different impacts that those relationships have on us, the different needs that we get met from those, and how it all fits together within our experience of life is absolutely essential. Relationships is a huge part of our mental health and is one that simply isn't to be underestimated in terms of how we feel in all aspects of our emotional well-being. So environment and relationships, your world around you, the people in it. I also include in this section your finances, your socio-economic position. That isn't to say that money brings happiness to us. It is something that money is a tool, it is a resource that we exchange for the things that we need. Our homes, our food, our warmth, our clothes, and also the things that we enjoy to do in our spare time. Most things cost some money, and in order to get that money we have to go and do something in order to produce that in most cases. So I'm not saying that money brings happiness. It does certainly give people flexibility and choices, absolutely. What I'm more thinking about is that if people are under financial pressure, then to me the only real outcome is that they are going to have anxiousness and worries about that, which from a psychological perspective starts to change the body's chemistry. This may start to affect somebody's health overall. If somebody doesn't have the access to the money that they need, they may not be able to make the healthiest choices, that type of thing. So it is certainly a factor in our brave new modern world that people's socio and economic position does have an effect on their mood and well-being, in my opinion. So a core message that I come back to is that our anxiety is entirely unique to us, and that what I hope to do is provide some structure as to how you can look at yourself, your experience, your health, and to understand your own unique experience of anxiety. If anxiety is manifesting, presenting for you as a result of earlier trauma, those things may not be your fault. However, it is our responsibility to gently and kindly and patiently to understand that for ourselves. Some tough love now, if you like, is that anxiety, you can work on it, you can improve it, and nobody's going to come and do that work for you. That it has to be something that we have to very kindly, very gently to ourselves, patiently take on board the responsibility and the burden of going, why do I feel this way? What is going on within me that makes me feel this way? And that's why I designed this course, is to provide a way in which you can start to look at that and understand all of these different things and take that responsibility on board with that real proactive mindset of learning and experiencing and doing that work for yourself and empowering yourself in order to think about that in more detail. I believe this, I have to believe it's that anxiety can be overcome and that it is hard work. I have to believe that for myself. As somebody that has experienced very acute mental health challenges in my past, to go, there must be some things that can help me. And then as I changed my career to become a therapist, I have to keep this, that it very firmly in my mind, that through understanding we can overcome anxiety. For me personally, it doesn't mean that I'm completely healed or cured. It doesn't mean that I don't from time to time have bad days, and those bad days may feel worse than somebody that hasn't had those challenges. I don't know, because I don't know how anybody else feels, and nobody else would know how I feel on the inside. But what I do know is that those periods of time are shorter, they are less intense than they have been, and I'm able to recognise those and pull myself, is that the right word? Don't know. To identify those and to do the things that I know will improve my experience and to enable me to get back up to something that's much more healthy, useful and comfortable for myself. And I hope that over time we can find those things that will do that for you too. And a message that I've already repeated several times: we cannot change what we do not understand. That we, in understanding, we give ourselves the tools of knowledge. We can start to think, what is going on? Why do I feel this way? And from that, give ourselves a foundation, a jump-off point to do the work itself. If we start from a position of, I'm anxious and I don't know why, then we disempower ourselves, we completely disarm ourselves as to being able to do anything about it. When we say, I feel anxious because of X, Y, Z reason, this relationship, this event in my life, because I don't feel great about myself, because I don't feel that I have the power to go out and change my life or to get the things that I want and need, we may not like those answers. They may present us with great amounts of work that we have to do in the outside world. We may have to start saying no to people. We may have to start saying yes to difficult things. We may have to do work that we don't want to do. But at least we know, and at least we know where the path is. When we say, I don't know why I feel anxious, or I simply don't want to feel this way, then I'm afraid there isn't anywhere that we can go with that. It is the understanding that then leads us to the acceptance of the start point, and it is then, from then, we can go on and do the work itself. In the next video, we're going to talk about a very, very common experience that we all seem to say, and that is, it seems like there's part of me that thinks this way, and there is a part of me that thinks another way. That there is the devil on one shoulder and the angel on another. It is a phrase that I use myself. It is a phrase that I hear in my day-to-day life. It is a phrase that I hear, or words to that effect, with my clients all the time. There are modern psychological theories about the kind of different mindsets that we would have in different situations. There are therapeutic disciplines that work on this entire theory, and from what I can see, all of the great thinkers of modern human civilization have all come up with, not all, many of them have come up with this different, the idea that there is different parts of our minds that are sometimes working counter to each other at different times. So we'll look at there is a part of me that thinks this, and there is a part of me that thinks that. And in the Understanding Anxiety course, the first psychological pattern of thoughts that I see in most people that brings up, that manifests that experience of anxiety, is that deep down on the inside they do have two patterns of thoughts about the same topic that are running counter to each other. And we'll talk about that in the next video. So thanks very much for joining me for this video. Please do comment, like, share, tell your friends, leave your feedback, all that usual sort of stuff. If there's more that you want me to go through, or if you've got any questions, then please comment and I'll come back to you. Or comment or message and I'll come back to you. But thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.